basis of vector spaces. We'll start with groups. We'll go to rings, we'll go to fields, and then we'll go to vector spaces. And then in throughout your data science course, you'll be seeing that any data that you have in hand is going to be represented as a vector. So there's one assumption that we always make here is that data is going to be numeric here, because I know basically the question will come to you, ma'am, all the data that we have is not numeric in nature, but always once you go down to the representational level, your data takes a numeric representation. Okay. And the next part is solving linear equations. You very well know, you could have already done this from your childhood. I mean, your teens, when you're 6th standard, 7th standard, they're given you a graph, they could have given you a bunch of linear equations and asked you to plot it as a graph. So there you will plot and you will find out the point of intersection. That is one way of solving your linear equation. That is by using graphical method. So there are different ways you can use to solve your linear equations. And you can make your whole linear equation, you can represent it as vectors, and then from there also you can work. Or you can work it out as a matrix and work it out from a matrix kind of way. So the next concept we'll be looking at is linear independence. What is a basis and rank? Your linear mapping, affine spaces, norms. What is the inner product of functions? What are orthogonality, orthonormal basis, and orthogonal projection. So this is what we will cover in the first unit. If I recall correctly, this whole first unit has been covered in detail in your AOD class as well as in linear algebra. In linear algebra, I think this alone could have taken the first few hours. I think 8 hours or 9 hours, they could have dealt it in detail. The next part is matrix decomposition, eigenvalues, eigenvectors. You could have already studied determinant and all, you will already know. We will look at several other decompositions that we will be doing in this particular case. And next thing is vector calculus. Vector calculus, you will start with variate functions, and we'll also look at multivariate functions. So they'll be looking at both of them as much as we can. Again, it depends on the time that we have, because it's a 2 credit theory course. We will try to, depending on the what you call, on the knowledge background of the class and how you're dealing with things and what is your acceptance level, we will decide the depth of how much of data, I mean, how much of models we will cover. Clear? It depends totally on the class. The next is probability. All of you could have studied probability, sum rule, product rule, and Bayes theorem. All these things you could have already studied to a large extent. So beyond that, we will look at what is Gaussian distribution, what is optimization, why do we need optimization, in what cases, what is continuous optimization, and when you're going to have some constraint on your optimization, how you will work it out. The next thing, so whatever you cover till module 4, from module 1 to module 4 is the mathematical basis that is necessary for you to understand how you will look at data as a model. Okay, so that's one point. Next thing that we are starting is how will we model our data? Once we have numeric data in our hand, how will we model it? So the next part is data models. Your module, we will just look at what are the different modules we can use, whether there's probability or whether there is no probability. So your next module that you look at is one of the basic models that we use for data. Putting your data as a model inside, trying to find out some pattern from your data. The data that is given to you, basically what machine learning does is tries to find a pattern out of that particular data. So the basic model we'll start learning with is linear regression. So in linear regression, you basically know that you are going to have certain parameters, and based on those parameters that you're going to take, you're going to formulate a pattern. Clear? So here we'll start with linear regression. We'll go ahead with the problem formulation, how we do the parameter estimation, and then we look at maximum likelihood. And the next part is all of you by now would be aware that dimensionality, the dimensions of your data are going to be very vast. So we will try to reduce this dimension. Okay, so dimensionality reduction will be done with PCA, principal component analysis, which we'll go and study in detail. You'll have PCA and higher dimensions, how you can use it, and how you can do dimensionality reduction using PCA. The next part is going to be the last module that we'll be covering. You're going to have Gaussian mixture models. Gaussian mixture models basically are kind of form of clustering. Okay. And you're going to also study the EM algorithm, which is very important for you, estimation maximization algorithm. And you're going to have SVMs. SVMs are nothing but support vector machines. In support vector machines, you look at the different kernels that are there and how you're going to work with it. Okay. So this is the rough idea of your syllabus. Your syllabus is not given online. I think you can't download it. So I'll be uploading this PPT online. Please use this for the first as a course syllabus outline kind of structure. Okay. The next thing is the textbook that we're going to follow verbatim is going to be mathematics for machine learning. If you just Google this, you will get the PDF of the same thing. mml-book.org or something is there. The whole PDF of this book is given. You can also download it and have it with you. Okay. Then the next thing is, because I've not covered lab for you, I'll be covering it anyway on Friday. But I just wanted to just give you a rough idea of what are the experiments that you will be doing with relation to your lab. The first thing is going to be linear algebra, solving linear equations. I think all of you will know about the substitution method, cross multiplication method. There are several methods that you can use, or Gauss-Jordan elimination, anything that you want to use. Your choice is yours. You can use eigenvalues and eigenvectors is the next thing, and again decomposition. So linear models for classification, what is probabilistic modeling, and then dimension reduction with PCA, Gaussian mixture models, EM algorithms, support vector machines, and dual support vector machines. So this whole bunch is going to be your lab experiment. You have 10 experiments. These 10 experiments will be grouped and you'll have 6 assignments as the total. So you'll have 6 into 10. So you'll have, that's what 60 marks. That will be your internal. You'll have 40 marks for your FAT. And you can use any programming language. You can use Python, C++, C. Some of you can even use R. Choice is yours. I don't have any constraints on it. Just that you should understand the concept and you should be able to program it. The last point that I actually wanted to say to you was about your mark split up or your mark configuration. By now you could have known that you will be writing for 60 marks in internal and 40 marks for your FAT. In your 60 marks for internal, you already know CAT 1 and CAT 2 are fixed. So you'll be writing your CAT 2 next month during 10th of September or 12th of September. So in your within the 30 internal marks, you'll have 2 quizzes and you'll have 1 DA. Okay, so I'm repeating again, you'll have 2 quizzes and you'll have 1 DA.
Ma'am?
Yes. Hi, what's the matter?
Ma'am, CAT 2 is in September.
CAT 1, I think, is in September, no? CAT 1 is in September, and I think on September 10th or 12th, it is starting. Your CAT 2 will be in October end. Why, Pa? You're asking me CAT 2 is in September. What happened? CAT 1, I think, will be during September 2nd week. And October last week will be your CAT 2. Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, in lab exercises, like will we be taught in R or Python?
I'm leaving it to the students to select a particular language because I can't force Python on you because you all not completed programming and data science. Then in programming and data science class, we'll be doing both R as well as Python. And then you will know what packages to use, what to use. Okay. Now, if I talk to you about R, I think makes much of data science very easy, right? So because R is basically a language that is written for that. So if I give you a bunch of linear equations and ask you to solve, you just need to use the solve command and solve. So right now I am giving you a free list. I'm not forcing a particular language on the students. We'll say you how to do, what is the logic and what is expected out of you. Solving it is totally going to be your choice. You can use whichever language you prefer. Okay. I'm not keeping a constraint on it because I'm repeating again. All of you have studied Python, but the Python that you've studied is very, very basic. Okay. And if I am going to say C or C++, is going to be very, very, very basic. Clear? So it's like you're going to implement everything from the scratch. And again, C, I don't think many of you could have studied C properly because it's the end of Python and the beginning of C++ class. So again, there could be, I don't know what is the basis of your C or C++ and how strong you are in. So each student might have a different language that they feel comfortable in. Okay, that is your comfort zone. Got it? So if I come in and say use only one particular language, or if I give that kind of a rider, I think some of them will feel very disadvantaged and some of them will be at an advantage. So to normalize that, I am keeping it free. Clear? You have any questions?
No, ma'am.
I'm in
Yeah,
AOD lab. We did all the eigenvalues and all that stuff in MATLAB. So I was having doubt about that.
See, that is because that course is dealt basically by a Max faculty, and MATLAB is the only thing that they will be teaching you with. You have a lab component and they'll teach everything in MATLAB.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, but I can't, I don't know how many of you have completed MATLAB, and I can't just come here and say, please use MATLAB for this whole thing. Not feasible for me.
But it is
Because
an option.
going ahead, I have to look at other models and explain other models. Mathematical basis might be easy for me for you to do it in MATLAB. After that, other
Okay.
implementation for other things
For
might
data
not be
stuff,
there.
it's not.
So Python will be the best if you know Python, or R. Some of you might have learned R out of your own curiosity, or you could have done some course. The choice, it's open-ended. That's why I'm saying to you, as such, I'm keeping the lab open for you to use any one of the languages you are comfortable with. Because I see, even when I take cryptography fundamentals, the same thing I will say. You can use whichever language you want. If I keep a particular language and force people to do it in a language, I don't think people will feel comfortable in it. Got it? So your AOD has a lab component, or your linear algebra had a lab component? Which course had a lab component?
AOD, ma'am.
AOD, ma'am.
AOD had a lab component. So you people have already done all these things. Solving linear equations, eigenvalues and eigenvectors, again decomposition.
We did it in like MATLAB, ma'am, not in the Python. So not sure.
It's okay. You want to do it in MATLAB right now.
No,
Then,
ma'am. I will
then
change it.
what is the thing that you're learning newly?
Yes,
same
ma'am.
thing that you
That's what I'm
done
saying,
with-
ma'am. I'm
Yeah,
saying that
so
we will learn
us
newly.
let us learn it in Python or in R, whichever we are comfortable with. Okay. Because basically, from my viewpoint, you all are data science students. Okay. And you should and you must gain exposure to both Python and R. Okay. So the more exposure you gain to both these languages and more programming skills you pick up from these languages, the better it is for you. Both from your job perspective or CV perspective, I think that you should have strong programming skills, which is very important. Okay. So I will keep it open that you learn both these things. If you're going to go for interview for anything, you're going to have one round of competitive coding. By now you could have heard enough from your seniors. Right? So all these aspects are there. So keeping it into account, that's what I told you. Some students might feel very comfortable with Python. Some students could have studied C or C++ in their 11th and 12th, so they'll feel comfortable with C or C++. Some students might have studied Java on their own in 10th or 11th or 12th, or maybe they might know the language, so they may feel comfortable. So it is open. If you want to adhere to only one language, please let me know. Then I will change my style of teaching and try to curtail everybody to one language, which I think is not going to be so comfortable from a student's point of view also. Okay, so we will try to stick to Python and R at the max. Okay. Or we will try to do with both maybe. We will see how it works out in both cases if time permits. If time doesn't permit, then we will do it on our level. So the fact, can I go back to the class? Can I continue with the class? Any other doubts?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So the fact is that when you actually look at data science and you are like, it's one of the most upcoming fields, it's related to computer science and all that. People forget, the foundation stone, the basics is basically mathematics. The queen of all the sciences is mathematics, and without the support of mathematics, most of your data science today will not be existing. So if you know this mathematics and how the model actually functions, when you're working with some data and you're facing a problem, you will know where it is going wrong. You'll be in a position to handle the core of your problem in a much better way, because your understanding of the model and the basis of the model is much more deeper than just a surface level understanding of the model. So I have been in teaching for the past few years, and I have noted few things. Students will come to me and basically say, "Ma'am, we are working with the CNN, we are taking this image, we are doing this classification, we are doing that, we are doing this." So what basically happens in your CNN? Anyone has heard of convolutional neural networks? Yes or no? Yes. So all of you could have heard of convolutional neural networks, which basically is going to work with images. Okay. So students will come, they will say, we are doing this, we're doing that. I just, if I'm asking a small question, Appa, what is max pooling? They'll have no idea. I'm going to ask, what is the activation function that you're using? ReLU. They'll say ReLU. If I ask what does ReLU stand for, they'll have no idea, which actually means the connection between your basis of your models that you're using. It's like a black box. You just know that this is the input. I'm giving some images. I get the output. I don't need to understand how the background works. If you but what I will say to you is, if you're working with a black box, you will not know what is going wrong in the black box. So it's always better that you have some kind of understanding about what happens within the black box. Okay, so that you can tackle the problem. So you basically know that almost all neural networks are going to make use of linear algebra. They're basically going to represent the data as matrices, and they're going to multiply huge matrices and give you the result. So this is where your mathematics comes into play. Something as, as fancy as neural network has its basis only in mathematics, in linear algebra, and particularly with matrices, and how matrix multiplication is carried out from one layer to the next layer. So you have to understand that whole concept of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the deep learning process. Every big trendy word that we are basically going to use is based on data. Okay, so the data that you have in hand is going to be the core of your machine learning. Okay, so what does machine learning basically do? So any model that you design, we basically try to get a valuable pattern from it. So if some of you are attending, your data mining kind of courses, before all these HEP words came, machine learning and all, you used to have something called as data mining. So in data mining, what will basically happen is, I'll give you a very simple example. We are having some grocery shopping kind of scenario. So in this kind of scenario, we are trying to find out the pattern. Now, if a person is going to, it's about placing your grocery items. So if a person is buying bread and egg, there's a possibility, higher chance that person will also buy milk. So you will try to place these three things together, closer by. So this kind of things, you're finding a pattern. Now you have 10 or 20 records. From those 20 records, you can see that everybody who has bought bread and egg has also bought milk along with it. Okay, so these are different ways in which you can find out some pattern, and based on the valuable pattern that you're finding out, you can try to take some kind of a decision. That is different knowledge that will go to the next level. So so what exactly happens here is, when you have data in your hand, from that particular data, you have to get some kind of pattern. And when you're going to design a particular model, what we will do is, whatever data you're using to create that particular model, you will want that model to generate data which is typical or similar to the data that you have given the model to and you've trained the model with. Okay. So this particular concept of where we expect the model that we are having to create data or generate data that is going to be very similar to the data that we have given. Okay. So what is going to be the thing is that we'll say a model is learning from the data. Okay. So the data that it takes. So if you're going to give it, proper well-fed data which is labeled and there's less noise in it, the data is good, and the model will obviously give you a good result. Okay, this is also there. Okay. The next part is the goal. The model also has another goal. When it's not yet seen a data, all of you could have heard of dividing your data as training data and test data. Yes? Have you heard of this? Whatever
Yes, ma'am.
data set you take in your hand, you will say, ma'am, I'm doing a 80-20 split. So 80% of my data, I give it for training and the rest goes for testing. You do this, right? So you could also by now understood that if you take the same model and feed it with data it has not been trained on, the accuracy of your model will fall down a lot. Okay. So if you want, I'll give you a generic example of why training a model will see to that only a model works very nicely. How many of you have heard of the Plant Village data set? Okay, so there was a a few years ago, there was something called as Plant Village data set, which had all the leaves, tomato leaves and potato leaves, all these leaves, and there were some diseases in it. So they're just photos of these leaves. And the system was trained to such a nice accuracy. It had a 99% accuracy in predicting the data within the training test and the test data. Okay, so what basically it has a fungal disease, so there's a nutrition deficiency, all this thing, the system will say you just need to give it an input of the photo of the particular leaf. It will say you what is the problem, what is the what is the particular plant and what is the problem that particular plant is facing. Now that was the ideal scenario in which it worked. So what happened is this data set was an open data set which anybody could use, and this data set achieved lot of accuracy. But what exactly is the reality of the situation is this was within the data on which it was trained. Now I take the same model and I go ahead and I take a photo on a real field. Real field, what will happen? There'll be background images, there'll be other leaves, there'll be other plants. So the accuracy of the model will fall to 40% or to 70%. It'll obviously fall. If you're giving a well inputted data, it'll be somewhere 70. If you're giving a data with lot of disturbance and lot of noise, it'll fall even to 40%. So the accuracy of your model when it is going to work with previously unseen data, okay, is going to be a problem. So your model must learn ways in which it can find out certain patterns or certain structures, and your model will have several parameters and it will optimize according to that, and it will give you a particular result. Now that is how you will say this model is this accurate or this model is not very accurate for what we need. Now you can also understand about training. Okay, so you will use that particular data to make your model train and make some kind of predictions. Okay, so it will make a prediction that this particular data item that I'm dealing with can be classified as this particular thing. So it's going to predict something. Okay, clear. So in those kinds of cases, this is just a basic prediction. Now, if you're going to give it a particular amount of data, like I told you, you split it on your training and test data, you could obviously see that the model will perform better when in the training data. You could have seen that the curve for the training data will be better and the curve for your test data will not be so nice. It will not be very pakka. It will not be as good as the training, the curve that you get for your training. You'll see, you will see this in data science in detail. I'm just giving you a rough idea about why we split the data. Now, if I give 100% and train the data, then there's going to be no point. Okay, that's why we do this split. We train the model on one bunch of data, and we give some unseen data for testing the validity of the particular model. Okay. Now, the next part is that you all could have understood, thought that what exactly takes place within the model. Okay. So when you look at within the model, any data that you get, let me take NLP problems, natural language processing model problems, or any other problems, you have to understand that this data is going to come back to a numeric level. Okay, so your data is finally going to get represented as a numeric value. So all the data that we assume in this particular course, we will consider that it is already brought down to numerical format. Let me give you a simple example. Even in NLP, when you're dealing with natural language processing, your sentences will be converted using an embedding to a vector. Okay, and they'll be given values. That's how it is. So everything ultimately will get down to numbers for the working of the model. So here what we are going to assume throughout is that any data we are going to have is numeric in that nature. Okay, and this numeric representation is basically going to be your data will be considered as vectors. Now you have to understand that you will have different types of vectors that you could have seen in the past few years of your education. One way is the fact that your vector that you're looking at can be an array. Now, we are looking at it as an array of numbers. You basically, if you think of arrays, how will you think in computer science? One number followed by another number followed by another number, and there's some property which clubs them together. So that is going to be your array. The next part is you could study the same concept in physics. Vectors. You could put an arrow mark on top. It has a direction and it has a magnitude. That is a physical way of approaching the same problem. Another way of approaching the same problem is you take it as a mathematical model, a mathematical problem. When you take it as a mathematical view, when you adopt this mathematical view, your vector will follow certain properties. So it will have some addition property or multiplication by scalar property, which it will satisfy. Okay. So throughout this whole thing, your data, whatever be your data, it is going to be numeric in nature, and you're going to view your data as vectors. Clear? So you have to ingrain this in your mind, because you're going to use your whatever data you get as vectors. You will be starting the very first unit with linear algebra, and you will look at how you can work with data which is going to be represented as a matrix or as a vector. Clear? So whatever picture that I'm projecting here on the screen, this gives you the basic idea of the foundations and the 4 pillars of machine learning. The first most important part that you have to understand is the basis, the foundation. Now, the foundation part here is we start with you, and I already repeated, I'm repeating it again. We have a numerical representation. That numerical representation is going to give all your data as vectors. And these vectors are going to be represented as a matrix. And this study of whatever vectors you have, matrix you have, eigenvalues, again decomposition, finding the inverse of a matrix, or solving for matrix solving linear equations, everything will come under linear algebra. So this is why linear algebra is very important. The next part is the same vector. You could have, that's why I say very simply put, if I say you go back and you're given 2 lines and you're asked to find the point of intersection and given a graph, you will plot those points. And from there, you will draw the lines and you'll say this is the point of intersection. So that is going to be the analytical geometry view that you might take. Please remember, whenever we look at 2 points, we will try to calculate the distance between 2 points or the distance between 2 things. So when the distance concept comes as a measure, we will be trying to make use of analytical geometry. The other part is going to be, we'll be also learning about matrices and matrix decomposition in the like upcoming chapters. And once you have completed that, you will go to probability theory. I also told you why probability becomes a very important aspect, because you have to quantify what uncertainty you have. You cannot say with certainty. Now I'm going to say I'm going to toss a coin. You all know that there's a probability I get a head or a probability I get a tail. It's not certain. The outcome is not certain. So where the outcome is not certain, you have to understand what is the probability behind and how you will work with it. The next concept that we will study about is going to be vector analysis, so that you'll know what are gradients and how we'll make use of gradients so that we can do optimization. Optimization also basically is finding about maxima or minima. All of you could have done some kind of optimization, cost path problem. They'll give you a particular map and ask you to find the cost of going from A to some Z, and you'll have to minimize that cost. So the minimal of finding the minimal solution or finding the maximal solution or the maximum or minimum of functions you could have already seen. So optimization also we will look. So after we cover all these parts, we will start with the machine learning, or what you call the data science modeling part. So what are the models that we are going to bring and what are the models we are going to use? So machine learning basically starts with linear regression. Linear regression, all of you can basically know that you're going to find some kind of correspondence between the parameters that are there, so that you can write one in terms of another. That's all. You're going to create a function. The next thing is dimensionality reduction. Dimensionality reduction basically happens making use of PCA. Okay. And dimensionality reduction is going to be, you have to understand that dimensionality reduction is very important, because we have a lot of dimensions and we might not want to work with all of them. The next thing is going to be density estimation. Now, when you use Gaussian mixture models, like I told you, you have to understand at which part or which place all the points are coming together. How dense is the particular part? And then in those kinds of cases, please remember, clustering will not have any labels. Okay, whereas classification will have labels. So clustering is more or less dealing with unsupervised data. You don't have a particular value attached to it, label attached to it. Whereas in classification, the labels are given and you'll have to classify the particular data. That's where your difference will come. So your Gaussian mixture models are basically used for clustering. Okay. The next part is about classification and how you will do classification using your data. But your classifications will always come with particular labels. Clear? So with this, I have just given you the rough idea of how your course is structured. This whole part that you're seeing here, this is the first 4 units, the bottom part, and the next 3 units will be covered by this part. So this is the modeling part, basis and the modeling part. So I'm winding up with this. The next class, I think I will start linear algebra. Okay. I think all of you could have studied about matrices. You'll have some idea about matrices and solving system of equations. We will look into it in the next class. So I'm winding up here. If you have any doubts, you can ask me.
No doubts, ma'am.
No doubts. Till now, no doubts. But tomorrow's class, I will start.
Yes, ma'am, no doubt.
No doubts. Okay. Thank you, Pa. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Then you can leave. Thank you. I don't want to take more than 40 minutes. I already saw the clock and it's like showing 45 here. So I thought I'll wind up. Okay. So you'll have lab on Friday. I think Thursday we'll have another class. So we will look into solving of linear equations in that class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.